Int fl-Ewropa ma' Amanda Ċappara.
Nilqakom għal programm Int fl-Ewropa, programm kofinanzjat mill-Parlament Ewropew u din il-ġimgħa bħalma għamilna fil-ġimgħat li għaddew sankun għadin nitkellmu dwar żviluppi li seħħew din il-ġimgħa, mhux neċessarjament l-aħħar żviluppi illa għaliex sakemm niġu biex inxandru dan il-programm ovvjament tant l-affarijiet qed ikunu maġla, d-diskussjonijiet tkunu maġla u t-tibdil anke fl-aħbarijiet qed ikunu maġla ħafna li jista' jkun dak li ħankun qegħdin niddiskutu f'dan il-programm ikun diġà laħaq għadda u anke ikun hemm deċiżjonijiet ulterjuri. Però il-bażi ta' dak kollu li ġara din il-ġimgħa hija il-dikjarazzjoni tal-President Amerikan Donald Trump li ried akkosta kollox Greenland, din il-biċċa art li hija pjuttost kbira fl-Artiku li hija wkoll taħt il-saltna ta' Danimarka u Danimarka hija wkoll membru tal-Unjoni Ewropea. Barra minn hekk, wara li dan beda iħoss ċertu diffikultajiet biex jaħtaf din l-art imbagħad ukoll beżza li mill-ewwel ta' frar li ġej kien se jimponi tariffi fuq dawk il-pajjiżi tan-NATO u pajjiżi fl-istess ħin membri tal-Unjoni Ewropea li ħajkunu qegħdin jgħinu lid-Danimarka biex tagħmel salvagwardja għal din il-biċċa art li ma tappartieni lil ħadd ħlief lil dawk iċ-ċittadini ta' Greenland stess. Fil-fatt tul din il-ġimgħa smajna diversi diskorsi fil-Parlament Ewropew waqt l-ewwel plenarja li seħħet fi Strasburgu u għada għaddejja sa ftit sa dawn is-sigħat li qegħdin nitkellmu fihom f'dan il-programm. Plenarja li il-fokus kollu tagħha kważi kien dwar dak li qed jiġri fix-xena internazzjonali, speċjalment dan it-teddid li ġej mill-President Amerikan. Minix ngħid mill-Istati Uniti il għaliex ħafna miċ-ċittadini tal-Istati Uniti huma kontra wkoll dan is-sens ta' qawwa, dan is-sens ta' poter li jaħseb li ħadd ma jistalik fid-dinja għaliex inti l-ikbar pajjiż jew l-iktar pajjiż li għandek qawwa militari. Matul din il-ġimgħa smajna kemm il-President tal-Parlament Ewropew titkellem dwar dan u tkellmet ċaru tond dwar kif il-Parlament Ewropew jaħsibha dwar din il-kwistjoni ta' Greenland u smajna wkoll il-President tal-Kummissjoni Ewropea Ursula von der Leyen il-bieraħ ukoll l-erba' smajnija titkellem ukoll dwar dan il-fatt. Fil-fatt ejja nibdew nisimgħu dak li qalet il-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola dan qalitu nhar it-tlieta li għaddew ovvjament qabel mal-President Amerikan Donald Trump tkellem fis-summit dinji ekonomiku dinji li qed iseħħ f'Davos fejn imbagħad bidel ix-xena kollha il għaliex nafu li ma semma mkien li ħajerġa' jieħu Greenland u wkoll irtira it-teddida tat-tariffi mill-ewwel ta' frar. Però ejja naraw kif jaħsibha il-Parlament Ewropew u nisimgħu il-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola dwar din il-kwistjoni internazzjonali.
Now, dear colleagues, the last days have also seen increased pressure on Denmark and Greenland. We will debate this later this week, but it is important to say this. The European Union supports Denmark and the people of Greenland, and we do so united in our resolve. The measures threatened over the weekend by the United States administration will not help improve security in the Arctic. In fact, they risk the opposite. Greenland and Denmark have both made clear that Greenland is not for sale and that their sovereignty and territorial integrity needs to be respected. And that fact will not change. When we welcomed the Prime Minister of Greenland to this chamber only a few months ago, we told him that when the people of Greenland look to Europe, they will find understanding and partnership. I reiterate that now. Because, friends, I know many here believe in the transatlantic relationship, in our partnership with the United States. I know many people in the US share that belief too. We understand the need for Europe to take on more responsibility when it comes to defense and security, including doing more to protect the Arctic. And we have boosted defense measures and spending as a result. We know that transatlantic and Arctic security can be achieved without the destabilizing impact of calling Greenland and Denmark's sovereignty into question, or through measures like tariffs. We know that every serious global issue we must address is better faced when Europe and the United States act in sync with each other, each in our own way, with our disagreements, but guided and anchored in the values, freedoms, and principles that will always define our relationship, that offer stability. Europe will always be open to continue to discuss in a spirit of mutual respect. Now, I know that some will mistake our way of calm, restraint, and dialogue for weakness. They are wrong. It is the opposite. We are Europe, and we will always stand up for our way. We will always stand up for our way, rationally, confidently, and deliberately, and we will make no apologies for that.
Dik kienet il-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Roberta Metsola, kif rajna minn dak li qed isegwu il-filmati fuq Newsbook Malta, kellha wkoll standing ovation kważi mill-Parlament kollu, mill-membri parlamentari Ewropej kollha, meta kienet skjetta ċara u tonda dwar kif jaħsibha l-Parlament Ewropew fuq dak li kienet jipproponi il-President Amerikan Donald Trump. L-erba' wkoll tkellmet il-President tal-Parlament Ewropew Ursula von der Leyen u sostniet li l-Unjoni Ewropea titħaffef aktar saqajja biex tkun aktar indipendenti. Indipendenti fis-sens mhux għax xi ħadd qed jaħkimha, però indipendenti f'ħafna setturi. Palma kienet isserraħ moħħha għall-żejt u għall-elettriku u għall-fossil fuels min-naħa tar-Russja u mbagħad kellha taġġel biex issib saqajja fejn jidħlu dawn ir-riżorsi, issa tittamel l-istess fuq oqsma oħra fosthom dak diġitali bħalma tkellimna l-ġimgħa l-oħra u anke oqsma oħrajn. Ursula von der Leyen ukoll insistiet li it-trade agreement li kellu jiġi iffirmat bejn l-Unjoni Ewropea u l-Istati Uniti għalissa qiegħed imwaqqaf biex jaraw ukoll l-andament ta' x'se jiġri f'din il-kwistjoni. Sakemm ġejna għal recording u biex inxandru dan il-programm nafu li il-President Amerikan indirizza lil mexxejja Ewropej u anke dinjin waqt il-World Economic Summit f'Davos u wara dak il-diskors kważi ta' 70 minuta fejn fih għajjar ħafna lill-mexxejja dinjin fosthom dawk Ewropej filli għajjarhom, filli jixxuttom, filli anka sfortunatament elenka aneddoti mill-istorja tal-Ewropa, l-istorja tat-tieni gwerra dinjija b'mod żbaljat, però mbagħad kellu laqgħa importanti ħafna mal-kap tan-NATO ma' Mark Rutte u jidher li hemmhekk kien hemm żblokk tajjeb u pożittiv li ġiel li l-President Donald Trump jagħmel U-turn f'dak li kien qiegħed jaħseb li jaħtaf il-Greenland anke militarment issa qal m'għandix dik l-intenzjoni li jkollu l-ownership ta' Greenland issa ma smajnihom kien aktar u anke li jagħmel U-turn fuq it-tariffi tal-ewwel ta' frar li kien se jimponi fuq pajjiżi Ewropej. Fil-Parlament Ewropew, ovvjament, is-sensazzjoni u kien hemm kważi nistgħu ngħidu hekk qbil li m'għandux jiġi aċċettat dan il-bullying mill-President Amerikan, però kien hemm ħafna ċanfir lejn l-Unjoni Ewropea li din titqum qawma fuq tagħha u tkun indipendenti u ma tippruvax tkun aktar, ħanuża l-kelma Ingliża, soft mal-President Amerikan illa għaliex dan aktar ma jgħaddi żmien aktar qed iżeblaħa milli isib kompromess għal dak li qiegħed jipproponi. Sa nisimgħu issa x'kellhom xi jgħidu il-partiti differenti fil-Parlament Ewropew dwar din il-kwistjoni u nibdew bl-ikbar partit fil-Parlament Ewropew dak ta' l-IPP. Naraw x'kellu jgħid Max Weber.
Well, we start with tariffs year, with the Greenland year, again with Trump tweets to be analyzed. For us, it's clear that we agreed last summer with the United States of America in Scotland how to organize our bilateral trade relationships, and what is at stake is now the reliability of the agreement with the US side. That's to argue now and to work with threats on the tariff side is totally unacceptable, and that's why the European Parliament decided together with the three big groups to put the trade deal on hold. That is a resolute answer, and that's the most powerful tool we have in this moment of time in our hands, because that means US will not get 0% tariff access to the European single market. That is the message we send from a Parliament's point of view. I initiated this over weekend, and the other colleagues supported the idea, and is a common understanding here in this House. That's what is the first step, in a way. On the other hand, I also want to make clear from us as EPP, I would advise us to stay calm in these trade talks, not to escalate further, not do it the Trump style, if I may say it this way. Let's do it the European style. This week is the week of talks that Ursula von der Leyen has the chance to speak. Friedrich Merz will speak. Giorgia Meloni already had a talk with Donald Trump. So this is the week of talks, and to underline what what the European Union is standing for. And in regard to the security question, Greenland is an integral part of Denmark. So those who are playing with Greenland are playing with NATO. That's obvious. That is at stake. It's a bigger question. We underline the Arctic dimension of our security. It's of highest importance also for us as Europeans. But we have to make things safer together inside of the transatlantic cooperation. That is what we are standing for. The second thing what I want to mention is obviously connected to this trade discussions is Mercosur. And obviously trade is not anymore a business case. Trade is now a geopolitical tool, a very important fundamental geopolitical tool where Europe must be clear that we are ready for a rule-based approach of doing politics, of doing partnership. And that's why I want to support the wording of Ursula von der Leyen in Paraguay when she said we take partnership over polarization. That's probably the main headline in this moment of time, and I fully support her on this. For us, it's about competitiveness and about strategic autonomy, especially when it is about raw materials. That's why we support the Mercosur trade agreement in principle, and I would even call it the anti-Trump agreement. Mercosur is, for me, the anti-Trump agreement because it shows that a rule-based approach is still possible in Europe, in the world. We have partners who want to do it like this. We as EPP are the free trade party. We want to make further more agreements with our partners, like-minded partners, but we are also a farmers' party, and that's why the safeguards, also the additional measures of possible intervention in the market if prices are going in the wrong direction are important for us. And then Venezuela, we are having there a look on this. I met last week in Madrid the President-elect El Mundo González. He was the Sakharov Prize winner in 2024. My group, the European People's Party, proposed the Venezuelan opposition for the Sakharov Prize. Afterwards, they received also the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, and that's why it's important to talk with them. They are the symbol for a democratic and freedom-based Venezuela. The future of Venezuela must be in the hand of the Venezuelan people, and that's why we support also the democratic opposition strongly in this process in front of us. For us, it was always clear Maduro was and is a dictator, and Maduro is gone, and that's why it's good. There is a chance for a good next phase of the development into a democratic Venezuela.
Sa nisimgħu issa il-kumment ta' soċjalisti u demokratiċi li insistew li ma jistax ikun nibqgħu inżelu b'ċertu pajjiżi u anke b'ċertu kapijiet ta' stati bħal l-President tal-Istati Uniti u imbagħad dan ikompli iżeblaħ l-Unjoni Ewropea u din qed titlef il-krittu politiku mal-maġġoranza tad-dinja. Nisimgħu ftit x'kellhom xi jgħidu is-soċjalisti u demokratiċi.
I think that we should start by referring that today we've had a year of Trump in the American administration, and that, unfortunately, all the bad omens that we had on this administration have actually been met. And if you talk about the extreme right and Trump, we're living through times where multilateralism, national sovereignty are under threat. European sovereignty, the introduction of tariffs of 25% to European allies, really calls for a very firm and clear reaction, because Trump only understands the rule of the strongest. And I said this during the plenary in December. I said it very clearly. The climate of silence, the approach of silence is not working. And a month later, time has proven me right. This is a message that needs to reach the Commission, Mrs. von der Leyen, Mrs. Kallas. Let us speak the same language, the language that Trump understands, the language of power, the power of Europe during all of the negotiations. And Europe has economic and trade power and therefore should use this power. We should suspend the negotiations on the trade negotiations with the United States. You know that there is a majority agreement here between the European between the groups. There's a majority to suspend this negotiations. Tomorrow we will have a meeting of INTA and we will decide that no votes will take place at the INTA committee next week. I'd also like to remind you that possibly some months ago, when this agreement was signed by Trump and Mrs. von der Leyen, the Socialists, the S&D group, already warned about the dangers of this plan, and time again has proven us right. So I welcome those groups, such as the EPP group. I know they were not in favor of stopping these negotiations, and today they have understood that we need to stop these negotiations. And I think this is a good thing. I'm very happy to see that we can agree, that we can get a clear pro-European majority defending our economic interests and our trade interests. But that is not all. We need to also use the ACI instrument. I already said this before, and I repeat this. We need to ask ourselves a clear question. Where are those who defend patriotism, that is, against Trump? Where does the sovereignty of European citizens go? If we have a rule-based order based on international rules, well, we need to put the cards on the table. The time has come. We need to say very clearly that either we contribute to Europe strengthen its sovereignty, defending a European project. At this moment in time, Trump's aggression against Venezuela and his threat to use force against Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, Panama, Greenland, all that is illegal. It is clearly illegal. We need to say this out loud. This is unacceptable. And Europe cannot keep silent. Trump has made it clear that he's not interested in democracy in Venezuela. His only interest is oil. And in the case of Greenland, the same is true. To invade Greenland is attack against European soil, and that is why we need to ask the member states to strengthen their presence in Greenland and call upon Council and Commission to develop a plan to, if Denmark asks for this, that is to start working on Article 47.2, because Greenland is not just exclusively a NATO issue. It is also a direct responsibility of the European Union, and that is why we need to deal with this properly. In the case of Venezuela, Europe needs to be a mediator. That is why we need to open a channel of communication between the democratic opposition, represented by Edmundo González and Maria Corina, and also the government with Delcy Rodriguez. So where does the Union stand? We know what the Americans think, the United States. They're just managing barrels of oil. What about Europe? Europe needs to be looking at the transition and managing this transition to democracy in Venezuela. So we shouldn't just be sending messages of support to the opposition in Venezuela. So we need to start working on a plan in order to reach this transition, a real plan, so that the people of Venezuela can decide upon their own future. So again, we need to be very clear on this. And allow me to conclude before starting with the round of questions on Mercosur. That's another important subject this week. Europe needs to be more autonomous, strategically autonomous, and we call for sovereignty of Europe, the European Union in the area of defence, trade, technology, and that is why we need to promote Mercosur. One of the strategic decisions is this agreement with Mercosur. Mercosur today is more important than ever. Mercosur needs to be the reply to Trump, to the Monroe Doctrine. We need to open new spaces of support, of cooperation, of understanding with other regions in the world, so that you can understand democracy and multilateralism in exactly the same way as Europe understands it. And the Mercosur agreement, I insist, that is the best response to Trump, to the Monroe Doctrine in the United States. Europe needs to start political, economic, trade relations with other regions which can move in the same direction based on the same kind of model. So our objectives are clear. Every crisis gives us another opportunity to strengthen the European sovereignty.
Sa nisimgħu issa dak li intqal mill-grupp Renew lill-ġurnalisti fi Strasburgu.
The current disrespectful, aggressive US behavior can't afford any hesitation. This brings me to our top priority, of course, the EU's response to President Trump's claims. Until now, we have been calling for calm and dialogue. But for Donald Trump, this is a language of weakness. Accordingly, appeasement is over. Retaliation is on the menu in the best interest for the EU. The United States no longer acts as an ally. This is the new reality, and we will act accordingly. If the United States wants to play hardball because they think the EU is just a soft power that will simply make it, let's be clear. The US is making not only a dangerous miscalculation, but a painful one. The EU anti-coercion instrument has never been used before, but Renew Europe is now demanding its activation. Anti-coercion is our economic nuclear weapon. It allows immediate retaliation, punitive tariffs, market bans, financial sanctions, suspension of US patents and licenses without the UN or the WTO. Let's spell it out. Donald Trump is challenging the sovereignty of an EU state and NATO ally. He's undermining the EU's common trade policy and single market by bullying with new tariffs against individual member states. Trump should think twice. The US exports over $500 billion a year to the EU. We are their biggest market. We are not afraid to use deterrence for our defense. This is a warning. Access to the European single market can never happen with pressure, intimidations, or by undermining European sovereignty. For this reason, Europe cannot approve the EU-US Thornberry trade agreement. Let's be crystal clear and without any ambiguity. Signing anything would send a disastrous signal in the present context. I call for a statement of all pro-European groups in this House to reject the trade deal and to activate the entire coercion mechanism. And I repeat today my call to all pro-European groups and leaders to follow us and to show unity and determination.
Il-grupp fil-Parlament Ewropew ICR li ġeneralment ikunu qegħdin jieħdu in-naħa u jaqblu ma dak li qed jgħid Donald Trump, il-President tal-Istati Uniti, din id-darba però dawru femtom u fejn tidħol Greenland u fejn jidħol it-teddid tat-tariffi huma kienu ċari wkoll dawn l-affarijiet ma jsirux.
We are living a crucial time. Yesterday maybe you seen that we stood up for showing solidarity for Denmark and Greenland, the self-determination of Greenland. At the same time, I want to say that we are in favor of the de-escalation of the tones. We are concerned about the ones who want to escalate the tones, talking about new tariffs, anti-coercive tools. I think we need to restore the relationship with the US. It's not easy because, you know, Donald Trump is a very tough negotiator, for sure. But we are linked to a common past, but also to a common future. And let me add that maybe you know that in the INTA committee, the day after tomorrow, the Socialists, EPP and Greens and Renew, I think, wants to vote to stop the trade agreement EU-US that is working since the 7th of August of last year. We think this is a mistake. Because that agreement, okay, was not the best for us, but let me say that if you look at the outcome, you can see that it was good for both the two sides of the Atlantic, especially for European export. So I think this is against our interest. Stop that agreement.
Sa nisimgħu wkoll dak li kellhom xi jgħidu lill-ġurnalisti dwar din il-kwistjoni ta' Greenland, il-partit tal-Greens u anke l-EFA li flimkien indirizzaw il-ġurnalisti u qalu hekk.
We have been quite clear on this in the past, but I think the latest developments, especially the again pronounced threats against Greenland by Donald Trump, make it very, very clear that the European Union needs to get their act together and finally act on this. We have seen in the last year that there was a very elaborate appeasement strategy, trying to find agreements, trying to please Trump with different things that the Commission agreed to. We have always been very, very critical about this because when you look at history, you see that trying to appease a bully is not a very successful strategy, and we believe that Donald Trump only understands strength, and this is how we should act now. These are now not only economical questions anymore, these are questions that go very deeply into international law, into the question of sovereignty, and the threats that are being pronounced there are clearly going against that. We also see that in a long list of other actions that the Trump administration has been doing, that Donald Trump is seeking to destroy the international rules-based order. You can only look at the list of UN institutions that the US is seeking to leave, the attacks on the United Nations, on the European Union, not only verbally, but now also in terms of putting economic pressure. So for us, it is very clear that this is a blackmailing strategy to basically force the European Union, and not only the European Union, but the rest of the world, into submission. And we, of course, find this completely unacceptable, and we believe that the European Union has to stand up to this. We have tools that we can use. Long debates have been had about, for example, using the anti-coercion instrument. This could be one way to show the US that we are not willing to budge anymore, but that we are standing up to what they are doing. We have also been very, very vocal supporters of introducing a digital tax. We know that the big tech companies that are very close to Donald Trump, the big tech oligarchs in the US, are very afraid of this, because the European Union is a very big market for digital services. So we believe targeting this, going there, not only because it's a good retaliation instrument, but also because it's actually very fair to properly tax digital services, would be a strong reaction. And this has also been something that we have been asking for, to really enforce the Digital Services Act. We have had first cases now that have been concluded, but they're going too slow. We now have another case with Grok and the sexualized violence that it has been used for. So there are very, very clear cases where the European Commission could do much more, and we believe that the time is now there to act. We will invite 2 people to our group meeting tonight, if I'm rightly informed, the 2 directors of Hate Aid. It's an organization from Germany that is fighting against different forms of hatred, of violence online, who have now been sanctioned by the US. This is the state that we are in, that people who are fighting against hatred online are being sanctioned by the United States of America. We believe that this is a very clear indication that the European Union has to do more. It's the time for independence for Europe. This obviously has very, very far-reaching consequences, not only in the digital sector, not only when it comes to political action, but also when we speak about really enforcing the Green Deal, becoming world leaders in green technology. And here I'm going to stop before I'm speaking too long and pass the floor to Bas.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I think the bottom line is, of course, that quite for a long while, a lot of people always said, if Trump is doing his speeches, you should not take him literally, right? That was a very long while. The idea that we can appease Trump is kind of let him talk, let him do the speeches, but meanwhile we're just doing business as usual. I think it's becoming clearer and clearer we have to take Trump very literal. What he is saying, what he is writing in their own security strategy is his vision on the world. And that is a vision where Europe is one of the biggest opponents for Trump's vision. And that is a vision on a fossil economy where you have hemispheres of influence, where Europe, of course, with our attitude, is a problem. And that's why they are also attacking our digital legislation, because through the digital agenda, they're just trying to influence also, of course, the opinions in Europe. So they don't like our tech legislation, they don't like the Green Deal, and they just don't like the idea of a European Union. And I think we need to take that damn serious. And we need to react also accordingly. And as Terry said, just appeasing doesn't work. We even had an interview by Mark Rutte, who is doing interviews in Dutch newspapers a bit more, of course, given his nationality. And by the end of the year, he was even saying we should thank Trump for his leadership. Thank you for laughing. The only thing I can say is that didn't age very well, that interview, and that was only the end of December. I think it's becoming clear now we have to take him serious, we have to take our own agenda, and that means Europe, with great urgency, need to become more sovereign, not only militarily, where indeed Europe took action last year, but also digitally and economically. those are the three strands where Europe needs to work with a very fast pace to get sovereign as Europe.
Daw kienu il-kummenti tal-maġġoranza tal-partiti li jinsabu u li jagħmlu parti mill-Parlament Ewropew dwar kif jaħsbuha dwar dak li kien qiegħed jedded bih il-President Amerikan Donald Trump. Kif qedtilkom fil-bidu ta' dan il-programm qed jixxandar il-ġimgħa u għalhekk jista' jkun li inbidlu l-affarijiet minn meta rekordjajnieh sa meta qiegħed jixxandar. L-affarijiet jidher li huma pożittivi aktar milli kienu, it-teddida militari issa telqet għal kollox għaliex il-President Amerikan assigura li ma jridx jieħu Greenland b'mod militari, però ukoll għaddejjin diskussjonijiet ta' ftehim dwar kif dawk kollha li jmissu mal-ċirku Artiku se jkunu qegħdin jagħmlu aktar l-almu tagħhom biex issalvagwardjaw din iż-żona li hija issa importanti ħafna u ħafna minn mindu qiegħed jinħall aktar is-silġ u aktar qed iżiedu il-passaġġi minn dik iż-żona tad-dinja. Inħallu ftit dan il-suġġett għalissa u ħankunu qegħdin nitkellmu dwar il-maltempata ħeri li laqtet il-pajjiżna tul din il-ġimgħa. Mija jissa għandi l-membru parlamentari Ewropew Peter Aġus, ħankunu qegħdin nitkellmu fil-qosor ħafna dwar xi ħaġa li laqtitna direttament din il-ġimgħa għaliex sissa tkellimna fuq affarijiet barranin mhux għax ma jolqtuna, però din kienet f'pajjiżna u ħafna minna wkoll ġarbu ħsarat u bħala ċittadini Ewropej għandna wkoll minn fejn nieħdu xi ftit għajnuna. Peter Aġus insellimlek qiegħda nitkellem dwar il-maltempata li laqtet il-Malta din il-ġimgħa. Fil-bidu ta' din il-ġimgħa kena din il-maltempata li sfortunatament ħafna nies li jgħixu mal-kosta jew inkella ħafna bdiewa esperjenzaw ħsarat konsiderevoli kemm fil-makkinarji tagħhom, fil-proprjetà tagħhom u anka fil-ħaxix, fil-bija li kienu qegħdin diġà qed irabbu għall-istaġun li ġej. Igwidana ftit x'jiġri f'pajjiżi oħra Ewropej meta jintlaqtu minn maltemp bħal dan?
Iva, l-ewwel nett solidarjetà u grazzi kbira lil dawk kollha li jgħenu f'dawn il-momenti ndunaw bħal ħaddiema tal-protezzjoni ċivili, pereżempju kemm kienu vitali. Issa ovvjament huwa l-mument fejn naraw kif nistgħu nġibu l-għajnuna biex ngħinu lil dawn in-nies kollha mill-qutin. Għandek ħafna nies sofrew ħsara fil-proprjetajiet privata, fid-djar, fl-eliqi, anki karozzi dajjes minn kollox. Rajna anke l-fast ferry terminal, pereżempju, ħajaffettwa ħafna lil-lawċin, il-fatt li dak ġara fl-Sarat u ħafna żoni oħra. Issa, importanti nifhmu li l-Ewropa għandha l-għajnuna disponibbli. Kull ma jrid il-Gvern huwa japplika imma jrid iħaddem rasu biex napplikaw sew. Għal xi ħanati ma' ftit kliem x'inhi l-essenza hawnhekk. L-Ewropa għandha dak li jgħidu European Solidarity Fund, tajjeb dan il-fond fih aktar minn biljun euro riserva għalih. Fil-fatt ingħataw fondi kbar lil pereżempju pajjiżi taċ-ċentru tal-Ewropa meta kien hemm l-arar. Ingħataw fondi kbar lil Valencia fejn kien hemm l-arar, ingħataw fondi kbar lil Greċja meta kien hemm in-nirien. Malta s'issa qatt mużatu għal maltemp u affarijiet bħal daw. Għal xiex? Għax dan is-Solidarity Fund għandu żewġ kriterji. Normalment li jrid ikun ħsarat fuq affarijiet pubbliċi, jiġifieri toroq, binijiet pubbliċi u affarijiet hekk mhux ħsara tal-privat. U t-tieni kriterju huwa li l-ħsarat idu jammontaw għal 0.6% of GNI, Gross National Income. Fil-każ ta' Malta l-GNI meta tikkalkula 0.6% tiegħu jammonta għal aktar minn 100 miljun. Issa jiena nemmen, sfortunatament, traġikament, li tant saru ħsarat din it-tempesta ħeri li qegħdin għall-ewwel darba sfortunatament nikkonsidraw sitwazzjoni fejn vera hemm ħsara ta' aktar minn 100 miljun. Għax smajna id-DWSC ħabbret li saret ħsarat fil-impjanti ta' drenaġġ. Smajna il-fast ferry ta' Għawdex. Rajna u waslu li messaġġi jiena mingħand eluf ta' nies. Issa importanti nħadmu rasna għal xiex, għax Malta għandha għażla hawnhekk. Jew ħadd tagħmel applikazzjoni taħt is-Solidarity Fund u tagħmel applikazzjonijiet oħra pereżempju għal bdiewa sajjieda u diversi affarijiet oħrajn fejn hemm fondi oħrajn ukoll. Però jiena nemmen li l-apparat produttiv li jipproduċi l-ikel bħal huma s-sajjieda rajna luzzi imkisrin.
Is-sigurtà tal-ikel da tal-poplu xek mhux tas-sajjied partikolari.
Prosit, jiena nemmen li l-apparat produttiv li jitmana huwa ta' interess pubbliku. Huwa materjal ta' natura pubblika u nemmen allura li l-Gvern għandu jagħmel applikazzjoni għall European Solidarity Fund. Nemmen li dina milli rajna jiena m'iniex espert u naħseb aqas il-Gvern qatt m'għandu stima sħiħa, imma tissir stima dettaljata ħafna. Jekk dina taqbes il-100 miljun, mela aħna għandna nħabtu l-bib tal-Ewropa u hemmhekk naraw li l-Ewropa tkun solidari magħna.
Hemm lok kif intom il-membri parlamentari intom il-membri parlamentari Ewropej tagħtu s-sem tagħkom anke parir lill-Gvern Malti?
Bla dubju, jiena diġà għamilt id-disponibilità tiegħi ċara fuq il-mezzi soċjali, mod pubbliku, dan huwa mument ta' qda nazzjonali, dan mhux mument ta' politika, dan huwa mument ta' soluzzjonijiet għall poplu. Jiġifieri jiena kemm bħala membru fil-Kumitat tal-Agrikoltura fejn jiena membru attiv ħafna, kemm fl-IPP, Partit Popolari Ewropew fejn jiena attiv ħafna u għandna delegazzjoni tal-Partit Nazzjonalista, ser nagħmlu kull ma jeħtieġ biex nimbuttaw il-każ ta' Malta. Importanti nħadmu rasna biex l-applikazzjoni issir sewwa mill-bidunet. Issa ħaġa oħra dettall li mhuwiex dettall daqshekk għall-Ministru. Dak tal-ħanut ta' Marsa Skala, dak li tilef il-produzzjoni kollha tiegħu tal-frawli, tajjeb u erba' xhur oħra ma ħajħallu xejn jbih. Dawna jridu assistenza fl-immedjat issa. Tajjeb u l-Ewropa tippermetti jekk aħna ntuhom deposit, tajjeb l-Ewropa tippermetti li dan ikun inkluż mbagħad aktar tard fil-fondi li tina l-Ewropa, ma ovvjament id-deposit għalissa
irid tkun ħareġ.
Jħorġu il-Gvern. U nemmen li l-Gvern isostni fl-immedjat lil dawn in-nies biex nagħtuhom sinjal ta' tama, sinjal ta' kuraġġ. Lil dawk in-nies tarlapsi pereżempju, dawk in-nies li anki tilfu kmamar, li tilfu il-ħobża tagħhom intuhom sinjal ta' tama minn issa.
Ekku, nirringrazzjak Peter ta' dan l-intervent tiegħek waqt dan il-programm, naf li għamilnieh f'qasir ħin il għaliex ovvjament dan il-programm kien jiffoka aktar fuq it-tempesta oħra internazzjonali li għaddejja qiegħda tinbidel kultant ħin. Jista' jkun li waqt li qed intisimgħu dan il-programm tajdu isma' dan li smajna huwa xi ftit obsolit, diġà għadda ħinu, diġà kien hemm żviluppi, dan il-programm kien irrekordjat il-ħamis u għalhekk jista' jkun hemm żviluppi u jalla jkunu żviluppi pożittivi. Però ma stajniex inħallu barra il-maltempata ħeri li affettwat il-pajjiżna u nirringrazzjak Peter lilek u anke membri parlamentari Ewropej oħra li forsi tieħdu l-inizjattiva u tagħtu semkom ukoll biex dawn il-Maltin ma jibqgħux minn taħt minħabba xi ħaġa ta' natura li ġrat fuq pajjiżna. Jiena nirringrazzjak ħafna li kont magħna għal dan il-programm, nirringrazzja lilkom ukoll talli segwejtu int fl-Ewropa.
Dan il-kontenut huwa kofinanzjat mill-Unjoni Ewropea mill-lotjiet tal-Parlament Ewropew fil-qasam tal-komunikazzjoni. Il-Parlament Ewropew ma kienx involut fit-tħejjija tiegħu u f'ebda każ mhu responsabbli jew marbut mal-informazzjoni u l-opinjonijiet espressi. Skont il-liġi applikabbli, l-awturi, il-persuni intervistati u l-pubblikaturi huma responsabbli mill-kontenut. Il-Parlament Ewropew mhuwiex responsabbli għal danni diretti jew indiretti li jistgħu jirriżultaw mill-kontenut ta' dan il-programm.